So I caught up with Dandadan just recently, and I am sad about that fact. The art is so good, there's no anime out as of the release of this video, and now there's no new content for me to digest at all. Now, I don't think Dandadan is perfect, far from it in fact. I think it falls into a lot of really bad tropes at times, especially early on, and the plot doesn't really make you rethink your life. I mean, it's a series about aliens, ghosts, and magic nuts. Basically, it's not gonna be your philosophical revolution. It's simple, it's fun. However, the thing to highlight here is that when you reach the end, temporary or permanent, of a series and you enjoyed it, your brain wants more of it. When it can have more, it starts to trail off and think about what it's consumed prior to this fateful, disappointing moment where there's nothing else to experience out of something you liked. So, when it comes to Dandadan, where did that really bring me? Well, that thinking brought me to the Space Globalists arc, specifically Vamola and her backstory in that arc. Now, what you probably already know about Dandadan author Yokinobu Tatsu is that they really like taking the gloves off with backstories. Dandadan backstories have always been like 1,200 times more messed up than anything you could reasonably expect to happen in the current time of the series. The sad mom ghost, the evil eye, Unjizuma's entire life up until his immediate introduction to the series. It's a fact. Now, Vamola's backstory is definitely in the same wing as those other backstories. I think it's pretty messed up, but I also think it has a pretty neat thing to say about cultural beliefs and influence among society and how that can be used, and that's what we're going to talk about. To be blunt and succinct about Vamola, she is the daughter of a people that underwent a genocide. There's a lot of given reasons on how that happened, but honestly, I think a lot of them aren't super important to discuss in relation to Vamola. That is in part because Vamola is not socialized to be, and is in fact socialized away from, her people's customs at a very young age. She is given the cynical perspective that her people's belief systems and pillars were the very catalyst of what made them so vulnerable to this carnage in the first place. This perspective is most important when discussing her suit, this Godzilla guy, the god of Sumer. Miss Banga, Vamola's caretaker, describes it as the image of Sumerian hate, made by the literal material from the bodies of Sumerians like her and Vamola. God of Sumer is pretty much the cornerstone of the message of this whole arc. This is the image of the belief of the Sumerians, a literal culmination of their spirits given form. Now, I'd like to turn attention to how this suit is used by different characters throughout the arc. Initially, by Miss Banga, who uses it in arguably the most literal way of what it's supposed to represent. She wears it, messes up some big alien guy, but most importantly, when asked by the subjugated people of Sumer if the god of Sumer was going to save them, she makes a speech crying out that it was up to the Sumerians to save themselves, inspiring them to go against their oppressors more directly. That's because, while this Godzilla suit is literally a giant robot, it represents a belief system and culture, and how they can be used as symbols of power that can be wielded. This is both expressed in the plot from the suit's actual power level, and through moments like this, where speaking through the suit as a figurehead also expresses that power through belief. Now that we've gone over the meaning, let's just go over the people that use it in the series and how they use it. Vamola, basically immediately after Miss Banga wears it, is given the suit with the naive goal of marrying someone. She is the chosen leader of the Sumerian people, guided by the hands of people that forced her into this role. Basically, she doesn't know how to fully wield the belief of her people on her shoulders and gets carried away, losing to basically 4 random people she happened to come across. I mean, what's on display here is Vamola losing control due to a power beyond her understanding. It's definitely a trope, especially in mecha, which, I mean, Dandadan's not a mecha, but in this case it is. She is the wielder of her people's beliefs, but without the knowledge of how to wield it, it gets out of control. Pretty literal meaning, all things considered, but The more interesting case to talk about, though, is what happens when one of the aliens who invaded Vamola's world takes control of it. It morphs, changes, becomes something sinister and different from the original image that we were presented with. But the material makeup of the suit doesn't change. This is the will of a people, being utilized by a force that is capable of manipulating it, capable of wielding it like a weapon that those invaders literally made it into to its full potential through calculated and intentional malice. This kind of co-opment of originally innocuous beliefs is so prominent throughout history. I mean, like, have you heard of the Crusades? Most wars, honestly, most of them. Now, Vamola does get the suit back, but the message here is really clear. Culture can be used as a weapon just like any other weapon, even if it's not a giant robot in the real world. This is a weapon that can be used to oppress people, turn people against each other, and cause awful conflicts that can reap lives of countless innocent people. This is why principles around culture are important in the real world. Culture, just as easily as it can be used to separate, can also be used to bring people together, just like how it was used for the Sumerians before it formed into a vessel of hate by their oppressors. But also, there's like no meaning behind any of the other robots, really. I mean, what would this guy